everyone. Welcome to the Glow Podcast. I am here today with a very exciting guest. I have Paul from Areti Health, and I'm super excited to talk to him. Before we get started, if you are new here, we are Tailored Marketing, and we partner with organizations in healthcare, longevity, and wellness space to fuel growth through strategic marketing and sales strategies. So if you are interested, drop a comment below. Paul, thank you so much for coming on. I'm super excited to talk to you. If you would, I would love if you would just go ahead and give a little bit of an introduction so my listeners know who you are.
My name is Paul Neyman. I'm co-founder and CRO for Areti Health. Super jazzed to be here on the podcast today. In an elevator pitch, what is it that we do? We are a health tech startup. We focus on patient engagement and recruitment into clinical trials. It is a large sector of healthcare. Anytime a pharmacy or a biotech want to move a new drug or a new medical device into the market, they got to go through several phases of testing called clinical trials. Those hinge on successful recruitment of volunteers into these trials. There's no way that you can force anyone into it. You can only look for people that would be willing to participate and that fit the criteria. It is a massive problem that is addressed manually today, and we're trying to revolutionize that with generative AI.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's super cool. And I guess, so what kind of made you start the business of Areti Health? Like, how did you see, I guess, that this challenge of different companies within healthcare who are doing these clinical studies, like how is it a challenge for them to get people to participate, or what is kind of that challenge there, I guess?
Yeah, there's a number of challenges there, and I personally have a few friends who would like to get into the research, or their relatives or their loved ones are trying to get into the research. And it's not so easy. Part is that there's a disconnect between pharmaceuticals and clinics running the research and knowing who the patients are. And vice versa. The patients who would love to get into research, let's say about diabetes or so, they don't know how to get into these trials, or how do they register? Where's the nearest trial running next to me, and so on. And my founder, Ilya, we've been friends since we were students. I was a student at Berkeley. He was a student at Stanford, kind of kept in touch. I used to sell into healthcare before, doing business development there, more into health organizations like Kaiser Permanente, Baylor Scott and White. So not a stranger to healthcare world. He in particular got invested into clinical trials. We got together. We're doing separate lines of business, if you will. He was a CTO at a large healthcare company. I was doing something else. Started talking, and back then, Gen AI just got released into the market. He got an early preview through Y Combinator. Just got released into the market, and he started experimenting with it. And he said, "Look, there is this particular problem. It is a manual solution today. There's just call centers sitting and calling every day, trying to find these patients, trying to vet them to see, trying to convince them."
Yeah.
And it's just not scalable, right? And when you have Gen AI that is able to reason like an adult, we could put that to use. And I tried early traction, and it works. People like it, but I need someone who can help me out and convince the healthcare industry that this is acceptable and that this is works. So that, look, basically you need a sales guy, right? That's what I do. And so here we are.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. And so can you explain, I guess, like a little bit more about Areti Health and like how you all are using Gen AI to make this kind of a more automatic process, I guess? Because right now, like you said, there are the call centers, it's manual for a lot of these different businesses, but how are you all kind of implementing this, and what does it kind of look like? Because this type of technology obviously is not new, but it's still newer to a lot of, especially consumers, I would say.
Absolutely. And we actually use a couple of different flavors of AI in there. So there's separate phases to this. One, first, you got to identify who's a good candidate. And sometimes these companies have lists they've accumulated over time, the clinics or patient recruitment companies or practices. You go to see your regular doctor, and sometimes they'll be like, are you interested in research? You seem like a good candidate. How about I refer you, right? And so there's this lists, but lists change over time. People move, they change phone numbers, their medical history changes. Again, this is a manual effort. Someone has to pull your medical chart, review it, and say, oh, Paul seems like a good candidate based on what I see. He's got, I don't know, high blood pressure, he's over 40, and so on and so on. There's a host. But again, manual effort. So we use machine learning, and we go out onto the National Health Exchange. It's a network established in the United States, which allows us to pull. We have visibility of roughly into 70% of the US adult population. And
Okay.
so we can pull your chart. And then using machine learning, we match it up against the study, what's called a protocol. It's a definition, how the study will run, what's an inclusion, what's an exclusion criteria. And something that used to take hours and hours of time, unpaid time a lot of times, is now
Yeah.
can be done in seconds. So we identify from 100,000 patients at a particular practice, we identify 300 that would be a good fit. So that's the machine learning part. Now, the next stage is cold calling. Raise your hand if you like cold calling. Nobody does.
Nobody. Yeah,
Nobody does.
literally nobody.
Exactly. And so it's this task that everyone at the clinic dreads, or the patient recruitment company. Nobody wants to get on the call. And imagine you're calling these people like, who are you? Why are you calling me? They send the phone,
Yeah.
or like they waste your time, or they don't understand why you're calling. It's confusion. And everyone is on the clock. They're like, you got to move, right?
Yeah.
They kind of have this quota to fill in. I don't want to talk about quotas here, but imagine a call center. They're kind of on the timeline. So
For
this is
sure.
where automation with Gen AI comes in. We look at your profile from the medical record that we pulled. We know you're a fit. We know why. We know your demographic. We understand why you would be a good fit. And so we can create, everyone gets a customized message. And we synthesize the voice. And with today's technology, it sounds perfectly like a human. And
Yeah.
we can do a male voice. We can do female. We can do certain accents. We can speed it up. We can slow it down depending on the age group that we're talking to, right? Let's
Yeah.
say we're recruiting for Alzheimer's disease, we'll slow it down, and for example, we'll generate something at an eighth grade reading level.
Yeah.
And you're a Spanish speaker, you're a native Spanish speaker. All right, then let's talk to you in Spanish, and we talk in your language. So when you receive a call, we'll right away go, "Hello, Paul. We are calling from such and such doctor's office. We think we have a study that you would be interested in." And sometimes we even do a pre-study education. We call this nurturing. If we call you randomly out of the blue, "Hey, Paul, would you like to participate in a high blood pressure study?" I'm like, "Oh, no, get lost."
Yeah.
How about we drip on you? We drip text or emails that talk to you about the benefit of the study. "Paul, did you know that high blood pressure is a silent killer for men over 50 years old," or something like that, right? And we do a series of these touch points. And then when the study actually gets the green light to enroll, the calling is like, "Would you like to participate?" Like, "You know what? I would." "Oh,
Yeah.
great." And then right there, we screen you. So we ask you a number of questions to make sure that you're a fit. It's called a pre-screener. And if this is the case, we allow you to self-schedule with a clinic that's actually doing recruitment. And of course, there's multiple parameters in there, which is the nearest clinic, so you don't have to drive too far. We can take care of things like Uber and Lyft. All of this is done using Gen AI. So we take
Awesome.
a model. It's essentially you're talking to an adult that can reason
Yeah.
within reason. It's absolutely not a replacement for a human. And I can't stress this enough. It's not a replacement for a human, but it tremendously offloads this laborious manual tasks that nobody likes to do. And after a time, you're going to get burned out, right? You don't
For
want to
sure.
talk to these people anymore. And so the model can be as empathetic as needed, and there's no time limit. You want to talk to us, you have questions about the study, please ask away, and we're happy to talk to you. And it provides valuable, concise information based on the study protocol, based on the informed consent, all the materials that we have about the study. And
Yeah.
the results are absolutely mind-blowing. We see that people talk to us much more openly than they sometimes talk to a human. Just recently, we launched a study for a major accountable care organization. This is a type of organization that tries to get you into preventive healthcare before, for example, you need major invasive surgery and so on. They work hand in hand with insurance. It's easier for insurance if you go to your doctor regularly, right? Then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, bam, you have a heart attack or something like that. And we launched I think it was 1,000 something leads that we had to run through. And we very quickly started delivering the results. I started talking to them like, "Guys, this is amazing. We've been trying to reach these people for weeks, trying to schedule, because
Yeah.
phone tag is a real thing. The majority of people fall off because you try to play phone tag, they get frustrated. They call back, you're busy, you can't pick up. You call them, they're not available. We are tireless, right? The more we
Yeah.
call or text, and every time it will change slightly. It's not the same. This is what frustrates people the most about the previous generation chatbots, if you will. They're strictly on a decision tree. Go left, go right, and then you get stuck. And this is where people Get me to a human. I can't stand this anymore. Like we're hanging up in frustration. This model is absolutely empathetic, understands your tone, your behavior, where you're driving. Even if you, let's say, you speak English to us, but it's broken English and you're not in a good command, it understands the intent of the question and it will provide empathetic conversation back. But most importantly, it will answer precisely what you want to know. And we've seen dramatic uptick in our recruitment and how quickly we can engage these people, how quickly we can close that recruitment phase for the clinical trial.
That's super cool. Yeah, I have talked recently to like one of the new age like cold calling AI bots, and I was absolutely astounded by just the change in technology, because obviously, like you were saying, everybody's spoken to the AI bots before where they're like, get me to a human, like I can't deal with this, like they're not helping me at all. But the one that I spoke to recently, it really, really sounded so human like it even paused and used filler words like and like if you weren't looking for it, I honestly wouldn't have been able to tell that it
That's
wasn't a
right.
human.
That's right.
Yeah.
When we call on the what is it, southeastern sector, and we speak to an older generation, we routinely get blessed at the end of the conversation. I was like, "Oh, bless yourself. Thank you for scheduling me." We get unsolicited comments. Like sometimes people, they understand perfectly they're talking to AI, and they still want to talk. And they're like, "Thank you. This was the best AI experience I've had so far
Yeah.
because you're helpful and you did the right thing." Sometimes we go into totally unscripted conversations, like, hey, I remember one was like, hey ladies, I don't know why ladies, like, but hey ladies, if you get me into a clinical trial, I'm kind of out of a job trying to make a little extra. One of the reasons people participate in clinical
Yeah.
trials to make a little extra, right? Nothing wrong with that. Like, hey, if you get me to a trial, I'll treat you to a nice steak dinner.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
But it's perfect. It means we're natural enough where people will engage, where we're
Yeah.
not turning them into, or turning them off from a trial, and we can drive it to completeness. And then the final phase of it is, okay, so we identified you, we engaged you. The final phase, we got to make sure that you show up, right?
Yeah.
People's attention span is decreasing. Social media, everything. There's so many distractions. We got to keep up that show rate.
For
One
sure.
way to keep up that show rate is to stay in touch. And so we become their personal digital assistant. We'll start the drip post screening. Like, oh, you screened successfully. Here's all the information you need. Here are the forms that you need. Here's what to do on the day off. Don't forget. And we'll start that sequence. Like, here's why it's good to participate. Don't forget your visit is coming up, or maybe this is the compensation. We're going to lean in onto compensation a little bit. So we, again, do different touch points to make sure you come in through the door, because that's the most important part, to make sure you show up. So we become your person. And we see people, they will text us like, oh, remind me, please, like, where is it? Or what time do you, even though they have this, they could probably open up FAQ on the clinic's
Yeah.
website, but nobody wants to do that. It's much easier to talk to us, say, hey, where do I park? Can I get a free bus ticket there? Is there an elevator in the building? Because I have limited mobility. There's all
Yeah.
sorts of questions. We're happy to answer that. We can take the brunt of mundane, everyday questions that a call center would have to deal with and leave them to deal with really complex medical scenarios
Problems.
where they need to make a decision. And we don't want to be making medical decisions. We can educate you, inform you, screen you, engage, but again, this is back to, are we replacing humans? No, we're really a power tool. We're helping you to become much more efficient for everyone.
Yeah, you're really helping to free up the humans' time for problems that need to be escalated, not like, is there an elevator in the building? Or,
Precisely.
yeah, like the littler things. It's like, okay, we can have AI handle this. And then if there's actually any real issues, then we can't get rid of humans completely. But at least then for these real problems, they'll have more time and energy to actually deal
Absolutely.
with them appropriately too.
Exactly. Everyone who is in research should really focus on research. Let us bring the patients in. You deal with all the further stages. You actually administer your drugs, you
Yeah.
work on, you do the labs, everything that's part of the actual research. Offload the tasks that nobody wants to do.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you mentioned something a little bit ago that I kind of found interesting, and I think that it's something that we're dealing with in kind of this integration with AI and humans, where some people are maybe a little bit like skeptical kind of like the capabilities and if this is actually going to work, like is this going to ruin our customer satisfaction? And so I'm interested when talking with different research facilities, different hospitals, things like that. What kind of skepticism have you and your business kind of come across with that?
Absolutely. You know what? We've seen it with oncology, for example.
Yeah,
We've seen, and I can totally understand where these people are coming from. In oncology, the patients are vulnerable, and everyone in the industry cares very much about the patients. This is why this industry exists. It's very tight knit, and everyone is in it typically because they have some vested interest.
for
And
sure.
particularly for oncology, where you have vulnerable patients, and historically, the way they got into the research is through a doctor referral. You have an oncology problem, you go see a doctor, and maybe you're out of options. And this is when the doctor refers you for a novel clinical trial that may actually save your life or prolong your well-being. And this is where we come in and say, how about we run it? And there's healthy skepticism there saying, you know what, maybe we could. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but I'd really hate for AI to come in and again ruin my patient's life. I've seen it very early on. We're about a year and 5 months old now, so a year and a half, right?
Yeah,
Very early when we started, it was a lot of industry education. Nobody believed that it would be possible or that it would work to the degree that we said that it would.
yeah,
And there were boutique patient recruitment agencies or smaller clinics that said, you know what, my entire business line is built on personal attention. And we understand that if you would like, just understand there's a limit to how much you can scale. So
for
we're
sure.
not there to shove AI down your throat. But there are operations where they're looking for a solution like ours, saying we can't scale any further. We have to switch to AI because we're just wasting our cycles. We're wasting valuable professional time on answering questions that AI easily could, right?
Yeah,
And so you got to find this mix. It's the typical engineering 80-20. You solve for 80% and 20% of edge cases. Absolutely, we're more than happy if we make clinical trials better for everyone with that 80%. Our task it could be called a success, right? Our mission could be
yeah.
called a success. And so we don't push where there is no room to push, right? That's how we approach this.
Yeah, no, for sure. That totally makes sense. And I think like over the last year and a half, people have the skepticism has started to like fade a little bit too. Like I feel like a year and a half you were probably met with a lot more and now it's probably getting better just because people have been able to see a lot more of the capabilities of AI and they're not like all I can do is like ask it a question on the computer. Like now they realize like okay, this is definitely here to stay and we need to kind of learn how to incorporate this into our business or like you were saying we are going to have limited scalability and potentially our competition is going to use it in ways that we should be doing it.
Precisely. Yeah. A year and a half ago, it was a novelty. Like everyone's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I played with Chat GPT. Good for chats. What else can I do? And then all of a sudden it can call and it can talk really, really well. And it can generate images and it can generate videos and it can talk in your language, which is very important. How many bilingual or trilingual coordinators, the people that actually run the research at the clinics, how many do you have them on staff? Maybe not many. Do
Not
they
a
speak
lot.
Vietnamese? Maybe some speak Spanish, right? What if I need to run a multinational trial that runs Latin America, North America, Europe, and then there's a ton of countries in Europe? How do I do that? Do I hire these people for just this one project? It's unfeasible. This is
Yeah.
where we come to the rescue. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so, obviously, with AI continuing to grow, I'm sure you all have some big goals there over at Areti Health. And so, where do you kind of see you all headed over the next year or two? And what are some things on the horizon for
Yeah, there's a bunch of things that we're looking at. So right now we're focused on the initial engagement and recruitment. But the second phase of it is keeping the patient in the study, which is a huge problem for everyone, just as big of a problem. These studies, they're not a 1 or 2 visits. They run 60 weeks. They run 80 weeks. Maybe they run a year and a half or 2 years, right? How do you keep these people engaged? They get tired. Again, for some of these sicker patients that are seeking treatment where they're not healthy volunteers, they got to force themselves, oh, I got to get up. I got to travel to the clinic again. I don't want to do this. And so people silently drop out.
Yeah.
Maybe they have an anxiety attack at 2 a.m. and there's nobody to talk to. We are the digital assistant that we could talk to. Now, there's additional regulatory framework involved with this. Once the patient is enrolled, there are very, very strict guidelines, what you can say, what you cannot say to a patient. And so we have to adhere to them. There are already guidelines on the front. They are defined by what's called Institutional Review Board, which defines the language, what you can tell the patient, what you cannot tell to the patient, right? They want to make sure nobody's coerced into the study. And so that is purely on volunteer basis and so on. Once you get into the trial, then those regulations become even stricter. And we also need to understand what's coming next for the patient. So if in the middle of the night, and we've seen instances like this, let's say major depression, these people have insomnia a lot of the time. And so at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. But there's no way. Let's chat with the bot and let's make sure that we know the answer. We can calm them down. We can explain and deliver concise information about what's coming next, what's going to happen the next visit, why it's important for them to stay, get somebody on the line. We have certain thing, it's called adverse effect. Like what if someone is experiencing adverse effect from medicine, right? How do we quickly get them help? What if there are suicidal ideations? Can we quickly alert everyone, send them, and we already do that today, send them suicidal hotline information, alert the staff that particular person is going through a crisis, catch them right then and there. And we're good because we're always there. We're always on demand. There's no hold. You call hold and then I'm done. You hang up and you don't want to participate anymore. We are there for you through that AI. And then if we can handle the initial conversation, great. If not, we'll escalate to a professional medical team that will take it from there.
Yeah, no, that's super, super awesome. Let everyone know what is the best way to find you online. I will also include it in the show notes as well.
Oh, you bet. So our website is aretihealth.com. Please visit us. We regularly post updates on our latest case studies. And from there, you can navigate to clinical trials and whatnot. And my personal one is I'm Paul Neyman on LinkedIn. If you search Paul Neyman Areti Health, you'll probably see my face pop up. That's a great way to get in touch. Message me. I'm like terminally online.
Awesome. Cool. I will also put that in the show notes, like I said, for easy access. I really, really appreciate you coming on, Paul. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Taylor. Take care.
Bye.